We were over there to fight outdated ideas against folks who didn't want to fight us. They wanted a way of life. But in reality, you can sum it up into one thing. War is nothing but hell. I'm Taylor Hernandez. I am doing a video essay over the suicide rate and the PTSD problem that our group of veterans during the Vietnam War had. By going over multiple clips of Full Metal Jacket, one of the best anti-war films when it comes to the Vietnam War. Even though some people think it's pro-war, it's actually not. We were going over a couple multiple scenes. The jelly donut scene. We will have the slapping scenes, multiple slapping scenes. We will have the blanket party, which is a very major plot point for Private Powell's character. The rifle scene, the suicide scene, and then in later scene will be Joker's downfall into madness. So the first scene we will be doing is the opening scene, where these Marines are all lined up, and Gunny, or R. Lee Ermey, one of the best actors ever, shows that these Marines are all lined up to each other. And we then see him, after verbally abusing, which is pretty common for the military, it is a very common thing for them to verbally abuse them, grab Private Powell by the neck and starts choking him, almost to passing out, but he lets go. And in later interviews shown by one of our sisters, R. Lee Ermey says that even during training, a drill sergeant never puts their hands on anyone. We then go to the scene where Joker makes a John Wayne impression, and R. Lee Ermey comes up and punches him right in the gut. That is a form of hazing. Even though some see it's not, it actually is a form of hazing, which is a terrible thing. We then will go into the jelly donut scene. As you can see here, Private Powell gets caught with the jelly donut, and this follows one of the Marines Corps' major training points is collective punishment. If you mess up, everyone gets punished. And this is when it shows him being punished along with his entire troopers by being forced to march around in the barracks. Now this scene does lead up to the blanket party scene. What is a blanket party? Well, in one of our sources, done by an actual study into the U.S. military, it is when you're held down, as you can see here, you're held down while they beat you with either socks, they can beat you with rocks. In this case, I believe if I remember, it was soap. And they beat you while someone has a gag in your mouth. And actually, in the same study that shows military hazing, a good amount of Marines will deal with the blanket party. It is a wise hazing. It's a very old traditional hazing, going farther back in the World Wars. And it's a terrible thing to do. And this shows a major part in Private Powell's detrimental state into suicidal madness, where you see in the next scene, when they are all lined up, you see him crying. And some people are like, Marines don't cry. Well, he was just beaten with an inch of his life by his own Marines. And it's a terrible thing. It's a very terrible thing. This will then lead up into the rifle scene. And this shows some munitions. As you see, Private Powell is shooting well. He's shooting very well. And he takes the magazine out of his rifle. But if you look closely, there's still live ammunition in that magazine. As we see later, it's going to be used in something terrible. Shows a couple nights later, Joker is on fire watch. Fire watch, for those who do not know, you are in charge of watching over the barracks. He then hears Private Powell repeating the rifleman's code. And it actually has been shown in a study that among all the veterans, the Vietnam veterans have the highest, where over 23,000 veterans will lose their life to suicidal attempt. The highest by a six-fold in comparison to modern veterans, where for the Iraq War, it was only 1,600. Still a terrifying thing, but these veterans had to deal with a lot more. The practices that were being practiced now are illegal. You then see Joker walk in. Private Powell looks at him with the rifle in hand, and M14 with the magazine already loaded and cocked. He freaks out. This then turns into Gunny walking in and starts verbally abusing Private Pyle, which makes it a lot worse. It makes it a lot worse. That is then when we see Private Pyle shoot Gunny in the chest and then takes his own life. With the practice itself is similar to what is called a fragging, where you, in most of the cases, it's with a frag grenade. That's where you get the name fragging. And this shows a great hurtfulness into the Marine Corps, because this is not uncommon, of soldiers killing their higher ups for things like this. Private Pyle already had to deal with enough abuse as it is. In that final scene, you can see where he finally cracks. And it's a terrible thing to see. We then turn into a later scene where Joker is already off to war. And through these scenes, you see Joker seeing dead body piles. He sees his own best friends being killed by the Vietnamese. And he finally cracks when a sniper known as Animal Mother kills one of his closest friend, Cowboy. When they captured him, Cowboy, his best friend, just got killed. He's seeing it through his mind. And upon the agreement from Animal Mother, Joker Mercy kills her. And this shows a great downfall to Joker's character, where at the beginning he was a lovable character. He'd make jokes. Sadly, he did take part in the blanket party, but he was the Joker. He was Joker. And then at the very final scene of the movie, he says, "I'm glad I'm no longer afraid," which shows a great downfall. As in soldiers and in the Marines, one of the greatest things you can fear is a man who doesn't care about killing anymore. And during that time, those are more a liability than actually having for the Marine Corps. As yes, they are trained to be killers, but they are trained to be patient killers. I have a feeling that Joker might either commit war crimes or later in his life will take his own life from the abuse he deals with. This is PTSD. You will see it in Joker, where you got farm boys who's never dealt with this type of loss, never seen their own friends being killed left and right. And then going back to the abuse from the drill sergeants or future in life, this is why they also end up homeless, because they can't cope with it. My grandfather, he could not cope with seeing red from all the blood he had spilled. Actually, I am wearing his own helmet. And this is what I love about the greatness that is Full Metal Jackets, is it shows you the horrors of war. It shows you farm boys, young kids, those mentally impaired like Pyle being sent off to war to fight for outdated ideas. Because they were all afraid of communism coming to take their life, when in reality communism was never dealt with in America as hardly. And I want to thank you for watching this. There's multiple sources, great reviews, lots of studies done, not only over Full Metal Jacket, but the entire war itself. It is hands down one of the wars that took the most out of an American soldier. It took the most mentally abusive on the American soldier. And sadly, we still see it today. We still see the suicide rate is still higher than it should be. And we need to help our soldiers. Because without them, who wants to go to war? Who wants to go fight? And thank you. All right. How long was that?